Welcome to Wesley Impact. I'm Keith Garner. If your church suddenly closed, would it be missed by the local community? So welcome to Wesley Impact. Wesley Mission is first and foremost a city centre church at the heart of Sydney here in Australia. In addition to our vibrant congregational life, we serve our city, state and country through a whole number of social welfare programmes spanning across child and family services, aged care, disability services, health, employment and training. And as we develop and change, we're mindful of the impact that the opening and closing of a service or centre might have on the local communities in which we have a presence. Today we'll be looking at a work established by a local church in southwestern Sydney that's allowed itself to connect with the community and be at the centre of many life-changing activities. We'll be speaking to David Ould about an initiative called Break the Cycle. As we begin in Advent, Craig Gower is going to join us to sing an appropriate song, the Angel Gabriel. And I'll share some Advent thoughts from Jeremiah 33. Whenever we celebrate Advent, we're looking forward, and we call ourselves to remind ourselves, however, that over many centuries, God prepared the way for the coming of Jesus Christ. In our work at Wesley Mission, there's nothing more pleasing than to see someone's life turned around. The transition from a life of despair to a life of purpose. This is Candice's story.
I suppose it's, you can't control it. You'll feel so excited and nothing can get you down. And it can be quite dangerous, you know, like you can be in a car and want to speed. And then all of a sudden you'd be that low to the point where you're just like, life is just not worth it. It's never going to get better. That's how you feel like you're just not going to get better. And there's nothing better to do other than drink or take your life. The first time I realised I was ill was actually when I had my first daughter. I actually got postnatal depression, and then it led from postnatal depression into more problems. Like I didn't realise I had postnatal depression, and I don't think they realised either. I think they just wanted to name it bipolar because my mum suffers with bipolar. So but yeah, like my moods were very up and down. To tell you the truth, I don't really remember when I was sick. Like I remember being sick, but I don't remember things happening. Things went so fast. It would be like a year of depression, and then I'd become well, and it seemed like it was only like a couple of weeks of sickness. It was crazy. So when I was depressed, you know, like I would always sleep a lot, and I found myself thinking that my daughter could make her own breakfast in the morning. I used to have really bad suicidal thoughts, mainly because of the drinking. Wesley Mission, I suppose they came into my life because I felt that I couldn't manage behaviours with my children. They come into your home and, you know, they help you get your life back on track. They have contact with a lot of a variety of things, like you know, play groups to meet other parents. They also can help you with things like behaviour management, courses like 1, 2, 3, you know, the steps of behaviour. Like, you know, I do that a lot still now. It's quite funny. It took a lot to me to take at first, especially when they need to tell you what's going on, you know, like your house may be messy or your floors are so unclean. It's they have to tell you. She came around the next week and she was so amazed. She was like, oh, you cleaned your room, you know, you cleaned your carpet, it smells so good, you know, and I was being intent, and I felt great. Working for me is the best step I've ever taken in my life. So I've been working at my work over at Eastern Creek Hotel for going on a year now, and it's such a good feeling working where I am. I feel great getting up in the morning, you know, putting on my t-shirt, putting on my shoes, putting on my name badge, and you know, it gives you that sense of knowing that you're worth something. My goal is to keep my job, obviously, but I would love to be a manager. And I recently just got my certificate in hospitality. So that was a goal, and I got that. Also, I never thought I'd ever get my license, and I have. Just pick up the phone, call for help. That's what I did. Even if you feel that it's the lowest you've ever been, just pick up the phone. Wesley is always going to help. They're there for you.
For Sarah, Christmas morning will be like every other morning. Her family does not have enough money for the basics, such as food and electricity. Wesley Mission offers much needed support to help families like Sarah's, but without your help, we cannot help them. Your donation will provide much needed support and joy this Christmas. Please donate today.
Great and powerful stories. If we can help you or someone you might know, please contact us at our email address at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. And our website, wesleymission.org.au, has so many of the stories of the work that we're engaged in. David Ould is the senior minister of a local church and oversees a work called Break the Cycle. Originally from the UK and now calling Australia home, David sees his job as the leader of a church which seeks to serve Christ and the community. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Break the cycle is often used now as a term, but explain to us a bit about what that means to you and that programme.
Sure. So we use an expression, we're empowering sustainable life choices and communities. So we're trying to help people make better choices in life that are sustainable, that get out of that cycle of debt or depression, sort of some of the things you heard about in Candice's story, and actually see that there's a better way of doing things and make people feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel, so that not only their own lives are improved and the lives of their immediate dependents, but actually so that our community together does better. So we're trying to do that in a whole host of different areas of people's lives. Yeah.
And that's in a particular area of Sydney?
Sure. So we're based in the Macquarie Fields area of Sydney, and we're really keen to help as many people as we can in our local area. We have to place some boundaries upon what we do, but basically if you can get to us by a car or bus, we're really keen to help you. Yeah.
And Macquarie Fields is one of those places, like many places in Sydney, that it can easily get caricatured in people's mind, can't it? But it's...
So of course famous for the riots about 10 years ago. But a very, very diverse community. There's obviously a big housing commission area, bang smack in the middle, and one of the largest in our area of Sydney. But also at the same time, some house prices going way beyond $1 million.
Really?
And a couple of years ago, the fastest rising house price in Sydney were in the Macquarie Fields area. So there's a real disparity, which means that sometimes those who aren't doing so well, the more disadvantaged, get lost and missed out. Yeah.
And that world of $1 million houses is just so totally foreign and alien, isn't it, to many people?
Yeah, and not just the wealth, but the thing that lies behind it, which is people's sense of possibility and getting on. And so, you know, in the Housing Commission and around that area, we've got some people where there's just generational disadvantage, and they just don't know any other way. We want to show them a better way, love them and care for them, and say, you know, life can change, life can get better.
But you've many programs you do. You've got a men's shed there.
Yes, we've got a men's shed. We're doing life skills courses. So we run one for men called Sorted and another one for women called Empower, and that's turning lives around. Sort of 12, 13 weeks of sitting down with men and talking about why they're feeling the things that they're feeling, talking about addictions and gambling and pornography and how they handle their anger. We have people come in doing a bit of legal advice and frameworks, and you know, the list goes on. And guys coming in who, I remember one gentleman who said, look, if I'd done this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have gone to jail, I'd still be with my lady, I'd still have contact with my kids. And then other people who come in when they've got in trouble maybe with the police, who come in, do the course. I have the great joy of representing them in court, and we get remarkable turnarounds in stories. I can think of one guy who was up to his neck in drugs and alcohol and disenfranchised from his children, and now he's holding down a job, regular access to his kids, getting on with life. And it's a great joy to be involved in that.
Connection with the church and Christian faith?
Yeah, so the charity is based on site at the church, and it's a ministry of the church, and we don't pretend anything otherwise. It's not Bible all the time. It's more that we want to love people in the way that Jesus loved them. Of course, he told people the gospel, but he also reached out as a bit of a social activist along the way. And we want them to know why we do what we do. And then if they want to engage further, we let them engage further. So, for example, before the men's course on a Tuesday, the hour before, I'm regularly running just a little come and find out more about Jesus.
Yes.
And last time round, we had 4 or 5 guys
Yes.
coming and opening up their Bibles with me, reading about Jesus and starting to explore for themselves. So we love them and we say, come and find out more. Why?
So it's invitational, really.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so some of our clients don't want a bar to do with it, which is ironic given that we're the only people that are around there loving and caring for them. But that's okay. That's all right. That's what love is, isn't it? You reach out to all, and some will respond.
So that local church there, because that's one of the themes I want to think about, is the contribution. That local church has been there for many years.
Yeah. So there's been a church in the area for almost 100 years.
Yes.
Then the new building was put down in Macquarie Fields about 30 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, the Anglican presence has been there for a long, long time. Yeah.
And what are the results that you get from it?
Well, what do we see? I mean, it's changed lives. It's changed lives. It's people whose lives were going in one direction through to a cycle of just poor decision-making, often not knowing any other way, being turned around, being shown their options, and doing better. And then just the ripple effect that has on lives around them. So there's that basic impact. And then for some, there's the actual engagement with church, coming and finding out more about Jesus, making a choice about him. And we're seeing a little bit of that as well.
So just tell me, just briefly, the impact between for you, the relationship, if you like, between faith and what it is that you're doing. Yeah.
Well, James puts it very well, doesn't he? He says, you can't say you have faith if I don't see any impact coming out of it. And so what you then, I think churches then need to do is work out what that's going to be in their local community. And every community is going to be different. You need to go out and see what's going on in your community, see what the needs are, see what the gifts are that have been given you at church as well, on the assumption that God has given gifts as he sees fit and best, and watch the impact of those two things together. So see what's there, see what you've got, and see what you can do, and be brave. Permission to fail. But have a go, Yeah,
look, and I think that's great. The great thing is, there's a lot of resonance between what you do and what we're about. So if you'd like to know more information on Break the Cycle, write to me. I'll pass on your details to David. There'll be information that you can see, a link on our Impact TV at wesleymission.org.au following this show. And at the beginning of Advent, I'm going to return to some thoughts from Jeremiah 33 in a moment. But first, we're now joined by Craig Gower, who's going to sing the Angel Gabriel.
The angel Gabriel from heaven came on wings as drifted snow, his eyes as flame. All hail to thee, O lowly maiden Mary, a most highly favored lady. For known a blessed mother thou shalt be, all nations of the earth
I chose to volunteer at Wesley Mission because I'm passionate about justice.
I chose to volunteer with Wesley Mission because I've always wanted to work with people who have a disability.
You meet friendly people. They're all people who are self-motivated and energetic.
It not only gives me a purpose, keeps me active, and activity leads to longevity.
Wesley Mission currently provide over 130 individual services with over 2,000 employees, supported by over 3,000 volunteers to assist over 21,000 families and individuals each year. Whew, that's a lot of numbers. So as you can imagine, we are always looking for more volunteers to help. So please, volunteer today. Visit our website, wesleymission.org.au. You will not only be meeting new and interesting people, but you will be doing all the good you can, because every life matters.
Advent's the beginning of the Christian year, and the one candle speaks very powerfully of how God prepared the way and broke into that darkness. Craig's marvellous song of that piece that reminds us of the role of Mary. It introduces us to this great theme. The Christian year, it has this marvellous shape to it. It begins at Advent, but I have to say, I think for the church, we've allowed Christmas to invade us too quickly. Advent has a particular theme. It has things that unfold week by week, and the concentration upon Christmas, which begins about July, if we're honest, doesn't it, really? We've really got to kind of say to ourselves, let's hold back. I think one of the greatest challenges I have as a Christian minister is holding back Christmas. In a way, it's similar to Lent and Holy Week, holding back resurrection just long enough for us to understand at each stage what it means. And of course, it's always Resurrection Sunday, and the power of incarnation is always there. And also, for some people, Advent has a concentration on some of the odd sides of some people's Christian beliefs. Too often, it's perceived in church circles as a Christian celebration for children. But I want to turn to some words from the prophet Jeremiah. When Advent came, there was a 400-year gap between the last of the speaking prophets of bringing that message of the coming of Jesus and when John the Baptist burst on the scene. But these words from Jeremiah have so much to say to us that I think they can help us to understand the meaning of this day. Jeremiah 33, 14 through to 16. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will fulfill the good promise I made to the people of Israel and Judah. In those days and at that time, I will make a righteous branch sprout from David's line. He will do what is just and right in the land. In those days, Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will live in safety. This is the name by which it will be called, the Lord, our righteous Saviour. Jeremiah and many of the prophets were sure that God was going to fulfill the promises he made to Israel. He knew that looking forward, there were things that were going to be important. And when we come to Advent, we say to ourselves, thank God that in the mind of God, in the heart of God, and in the proclamation of the prophets and throughout the Old Testament, there was that promise that one day one would come who would change everything. Of course, that is the coming of Jesus. And the coming of Jesus makes such an enormous difference. There will be a day of promise. A day of promise. I like that because I think that links to Advent hope. Hope is one of the great themes of Advent. And how many people, we've talked a little earlier about how hopelessness takes hold of people's lives. So many people are somehow caught in a cycle of hopelessness where one thing leads to another, to another, to another, and eventually life caves in. But there is a day of promise, a day of hope. The coming of Jesus, for me, gives me inspiration to believe that God cares for all people. There'll be a day of fulfillment. Advent looks forward and it looks further forward. So it has all the different tenses. We often celebrate when it comes to the Lord's Supper on Advent. Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. We recognise this tremendous capturing of all the ages. All of this centres on the person of Jesus Christ. He is the Messianic King, the one who brings in a new beginning. Just a few weeks ago, I interviewed someone who had Just prior to the show, a matter of literally not many hours, his wife had given birth to a child that brought hope into that family in a new, amazing and glorious way. New beginnings are very powerfully Christian. And new beginnings are the hope that we offer to people. Life isn't finished. Not everything is darkness. So the candle speaks of light. Not all is inevitable. There is always the possibility of a new beginning. God is always breaking cycles, always giving new beginnings, always giving new opportunities, always speaking into the hopelessness of people's lives. Perhaps you experience a measure of hopelessness in your life. You think that perhaps things can never change for me. Oh, I listen to the stories that week by week we hear here and elsewhere of Christian change, but it can't happen for me. Well, it can. That's the great story of Advent. The people at the time of the coming of Jesus were waiting to hear something, but nothing was coming. Then somebody came in the wilderness speaking of preparing the way for one whose sandals is not fit to tie. And that new beginning and the beginning of Jesus was to start the whole story of the world afresh, anew, empowering, invigorating, giving opportunity to people. It's a marvellous time is Advent. I just wish we didn't go on to the whole Christmas thing too quickly. You know, just hold back wrapping the presents, hold back doing some of the things that you're preparing for Christmas, and consider in this period of time, in just 4 weeks before Christmas, what the coming of Jesus is, did, and continues to make to the world. That's a tremendous gift that God gave to us in the person of Jesus. In a helpless baby thing, yes. In one who would speak powerfully. You know, I was speaking about Mary before Christmas, that marvellous Magnificat that Craig sang about, where she speaks about bringing down the powerful, raising up the humble and the poor. Couldn't be more powerful a message than that, really, couldn't it? A bit revolutionary, really. But, you know, we maybe have to be a bit more like that. Our Christian faith has to engage with these issues. And just as we've spoken earlier with David about one particular context, every Christian community ought to be out there making a real difference in their community that will change the life of the people who live in that community and the opportunity to live afresh. Great day is Advent. Happy Advent. May Advent fill us with hope together as God's people.
If you would like to contact Keith and find out more about today's program, write to us at Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A5555, Sydney South 1235. Or you can send an email to impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. On our website, you can catch up on past episodes of Wesley Impact, find out more about our work, read online magazines and articles, and connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also connect to Keith's blog and stay up to date on all of the latest news and information from Wesley Mission. wesleymission.org.au.
Thank you for joining us today. Please don't hesitate to write and be in touch if you've got any questions or comments on today's programme, or if we can help you in any practical way. Our email address and website again is impacttv@wesleymission.org.au, and wesleymission.org.au has a site full of all kinds of information. David, what would you say? We touched on this relationship between the church and what it is you do. Lots of local churches might be asking, what can we do? Yeah. What would you say a local church needs to do to connect with its community?
A couple of basic things, Keith. You've got to see what the needs are around you. I think you've got to look at what the gifts are within your church body, and then work out where the connect is, and then go and do it. But then most importantly, I think, above all, is tell people why you're doing it. Be wise and winsome about what that looks like, but you know, tell people why. Jesus says, let them see your good works and then praise your Father in heaven. The Apostle Peter says we've got to give a reason for why we're acting in the hope that we have. So work out what it is, work out who you are, connect it up, and then tell people why, so they can hear the wonderful good news about Jesus.
And every church could do that.
Whatever your scale, whatever your size, we're nowhere near the size of Wesley. We're just doing our thing in our local area. Everybody can do at least one thing in their local area, I'm sure. Yeah.
and we make a big difference throughout Australia and the world. I hope you've enjoyed listening to David Ould and also the thoughts about Advent Sunday. I hope you're going to connect with us through the next few weeks, particularly next week as we start that journey further through Advent right up to Christmas Day, a special programme on Christmas Day. And join us next week for another episode of Wesley Impact. I always appreciate those who join with us and write to us. Thank you, and may God bless you richly.
Wesley Mission provides more than 550 care packages to people in need. To find out more, visit wesleymission.org.au.